Alright, this is my basic leatherworking video number 3. I picked up a burning lens, magnifying lens, from Self-Reliant Outfitters. I believe this one come from. It's glass, which I like, a little better than plastic. It's a pretty good one. It's got a decent focal length on it. And we're in January, middle of January. It's kind of nice out here, that's why I'm doing it outside. But you can see it's already starting to smoke it pretty good. The only thing I wanted was something to make it easier to hang on to and to kind of protect it a little bit. Being glass, if you drop it, it does bad things, breaks. But the reason I like the glass is it doesn't scratch nearly as easy as the plastic does. You can get plastic ones of these, but look around, you can find some glass ones, they're worth it. Okay, to do this, get you some leather, whatever leather you like. Hopefully the pin will work on this. What I do is I'll get it, you want to leave about a quarter inch or so around. And draw you a circle around your lens. Now the part comes in that's kind of fun. This is how big your lens is. We're gonna wrap this in leather. So we're gonna cut 2 pieces of leather, and the leather will overlap about that much of your lens, and it'll come out, and you're gonna sew right around the outside edge. So when you get it done, the 2 pieces will be sandwiched together with just a ring and a tab to hang it or whatever, and you can actually hang onto your lens with the leather. Keep your hand completely out of the way so there's not that issue. All right, so you got your circle, and I probably should have got a magic marker because sometimes a pen don't really want to mark. So you go on the outside a little bit and just draw a ring around it. And you get it down, and I'll usually run a tab out like this. You can knock a hole in it so you can actually hang it on something, put a carabiner in it, however you want to do it. There's your tab for your hole. Okay, once you have that, you'll have to go back in later and cut your center out. That'll be where the sunlight comes in. And for this sort of holder, I like the little bit bigger lenses, because you will use a little bit on the outside, lose a little bit of the glass, so it does cut down the effectiveness just a little bit, but usually it's no big worry. So that'll be the size of your center hole, and you can see where it overlaps. All right, then you just cut it out. Favorite pair of scissors, knife, however you want to do it, it doesn't really matter, just get it cut out. Okay, well, you can still see your inner line. I'll fold it a little bit and cut. Oh, the sun went away. Little bitty cloud. Changes the light drastically. Okay, now you cut your inner circle out. Okay, then go up and clean up your outside a little bit. Okay, once you have this, turn it over. You want this inside of the skin to the inside of the skin. So that way when you cut it out, they're both outside. All right, hold it down. Take your pen, mark the inside, mark the outside, Pop it off, there's your second. Then again, you do the same thing that you did the first time. I'm gonna rubber cement these two together up part of the way around. Carefully putting it in, because you will have to sew halfway and halfway where you can still get your glass in, then you'll sew the rest up. Up here will be secured. Okay, once we have both of them cut out, we're gonna take a little bit of rubber cement, and if they don't match up quite right, don't worry, because sometimes when you're drawing the first one, it moves around. Just make sure the second one's bigger than your original, and you can always trim all that outside off later. That's not a real big concern. Okay, now when you're doing this, lay on your rubber cement up in the tab area and kind of work on your original piece. Work down on the outside. Don't get it really past your line of the size of your lens, otherwise you'll end up with some of it on the inside, and that's not where you want it. It'll make putting that lens in there a little bit more of a pain in the butt. Stick the two pieces together. This will hold it down so when you start, you'll get a pretty fair start going. Like I said, you can see there's some hangover, no big deal. All right, now you got that part stuck together. You got your needle and thread set up, or should have. If you don't, go ahead and do that. Your rubber cement isn't needed anymore. Now you need your awl. All right. On that, about halfway down through your original piece is your original line. So where I'm going to go to sew this in is I'm going to start, you can see where the circle comes around. I'm going to start out here, a little bit in, and stab through. Come over however big you want your stitching. Come over again, run it through, and just do this the whole way around. Make sure you're staying outside of your original ring. Granted, yeah, I know it's on the underside, but in your mind's eye, you should be able to see it as you're doing this. If you can't, just line up your lens on top and put another line in pencil or something around that you can actually see carefully, because you can wipe that off later. And just, you can use a stitching spacer and all that if you want to do that. I don't usually. I tend to like just the go around it by using my eye. I didn't finish cutting that out, but that's no big trick. You can see your line in here. Just do the same thing again. Once you get that cut out, resting the glass in there, you can kind of see what it's going to be. It isn't sewn together yet, so you got to be kind of careful when you're doing this. That's what you'll get. Things will stretch out a little bit as they go. Once you get this sewn, you can really shove that up through there and push it in, but it'll sew all the way around. That's kind of what you'll get. So now we start on the fun bit of this. Okay, once it's glued down, and you're ready to sew, sometimes you'll need to open up these holes a little more once you punch them. So this is the long, laborious process of this. Go in, pull your needle through, and I'm using a blunt needle on this one because the holes are already in it. That way you're not trying to poke new holes with the sharp. All right, then I'll come back up through this hole, and my thread's doubled, so I just pull it back in on itself, and that should hide the whole mess. Inside. All right, once you do that, then you're ready to start actually sewing it together. The first trick is getting a few stitches in it. Once this starts going together, it'll stabilize a little more. It's kind of, since you can't really glue it all the way around, it tries to walk a little bit. As you start sewing around, okay, there's one, basically one all the way through. So you go back, and if you have to, you can probe your holes and line them up and then grab it. Granted, there's easier, there's different ways to do this, but we're talking like minimal tools. And since you're using an awl to push the holes bigger, these holes will close back up around the thread, and you won't even tell unless you go like stupid obnoxiously huge. You just open them up just enough to get the eye of your needle through. And on these blunt needles, the eye is usually a little larger because they're meant for bigger thread, bigger cordage, things along that line. But I like this doubled up nylon, bonded nylon. Okay, then once you got it sewn halfway around and back, this comes the fun part. It forms a little pocket, and you've got to kind of work the leather up around both sides of the lens. And this can be tricky. It can take like 3 hands, it seems like sometimes. All right, you got it in there like that. Now you go through and use your awl to line your holes up. Open them up a wee little bit. You'll have to do this where it seems like you're going to have 3 hands until you get far enough around that the lens don't want to come out. All right, we've got enough to where now it's not wanting to come out. And you can kind of see the finished design. The other thing you can do is come up off of here and poke some more holes around this edge. But after I get it sewn up, this is all glued down. I'm going to go back in and trim all this off. Finish sewing it up. We'll come back after I get that done, because we're almost there. All I got to do is finish this through here, then come back. The other thing that you can do is once you get everything set up and trimmed up, you can go in and clean this up with a real fine pair of scissors or a X-Acto knife and just kind of edge up, just kind of trim it if you don't like how it is. And to make it a little stiffer, this is fairly glove-tanned leather because it's easier to work and it's what I had. You can dip this into water that's running about 180 degrees. Hold it and dip it in and just keep doing it, and it'll tend to want to shrink this up. It'll tighten it up, tighten everything down around the glass. It won't hurt the glass. Then you just let it dry, and then it'll stiffen it up a little so the leather's not quite so soft. All right, I've got it sewn all the way around. We're at the very last part of it. What I did is pushed it through the leather, through one side of the leather, and angled the needle once I started getting it in there, so I run it out through the side. Okay, this is the stitch where it come through, so you just pick one way or the other to where you're not going around through the same hole. You want it up one side or the other, it doesn't really matter. Slide it up through and stick your finger in there so you don't pull everything all the way through, because you want this loop. And get your thread evened out. There you go. Now you got the loop. It's around your thumb. Come back through on the other side. So you're going around the stitch down through. You're using it like a tree trunk, basically. You're going around and pull it through. Your loop will go down through on the inside and up through the center of the loop that your thumb's on. You're basically tying a half hitch on the inside. Pull it tight. Do it again. This will finish off your sewing to where you can't see what you've done. Back through and then up, and just pull the whole mess tight. And then when you do that, what I do is I'll just nip it off because you're done. This part, if you fuse it down, pull that up just a little bit and fuse it down with a lighter, it'll fuse back inside in on itself and it won't come loose. But once you get it tight like that, it shouldn't come loose anyway. But this is nylon thread, so I always will fuse it off. That's just a easy way to finish it. You burn it off, it kind of forms a little ball and it doesn't want to unthread or unsew itself. I've seen that happen. You know, cotton threads will do that and stuff like that. But any of your man-made threads you can basically set up like that to do. All right. This is done sewing. You can also come in and come up through here, sew it around, back down, dip it in hot water to tighten everything up to where it's not quite so flexible. I'll do that later. I'll have pictures up of it. But essentially, for what it is, this is virtually done. And we're getting into, it's the middle of January. It's 3 o'clock in the afternoon in the middle of America. So the sun isn't real good. But we still got a pretty good focal point there. Granted, this is a piece of plywood. If this is a piece of char punk wood or anything like that, grass, you can see it smoking. So it is doing its job.
Smash the subscribe button, such as you would, you'll feel some foe.